everyone. It's Dr. Arlene Dijamco, the MultiDimensional MD. As always, my mission is to help bring the intuitive aspects of health back to medicine in practical and tangible ways. And this is to help you experience more peace, love, and joy in your everyday lives. So today, I'm going to be talking about bone health. And this is a general overview. This is important to me, not only this age in life, but also one of my friends last week, she told me that her doctor diagnosed her with osteoporosis, and she was told that there was very little that she could do about improving her bone except for taking prescriptions and maybe some exercise, but she wasn't really given that much hope in terms of what she could do for her bone health. So I decided I wanted to talk about this because it's such important and useful information for everyone to understand their bone health and to understand what you can do about it to make it a more empowering talk that you can reclaim your health. And at every age, we can do something to support our health. And it doesn't have to be all about prescriptions and medications. I am not against prescriptions and medications. I'm a physician, so I can prescribe, and I have prescribed, and I do prescribe. But if there is a safer and more efficient way, then I'm all about efficiency of health, efficiency and ease in all aspects of life. But that's where I like to keep moving things forward in terms of how can we look at this differently? How can we look at this from multiple perspectives, from a multidimensional perspective, so that we can actually do something for ourselves? So just to introduce you to the idea and how I think about bone health, because first of all, osteopenia and osteoporosis, they represent varying degrees of bone loss. So we're not going to get into all the diagnostics of osteopenia and osteoporosis right now. I'm going to do that in a different podcast. But your bone health is more than just about your bone density. So there's been a lot of talk about bone density, but the bone quality is also very important. Bone fragility is important. And if we think about the structure of how the bone and the minerals are put together, that is really important. So it's not just about how dense your bone is. We need those minerals. We need the structure of your bone to be put together in a way that has tensegrity, that has strength, overall strength. It's like a building that's designed, that's a beautifully elegant design architecture versus like, yeah, you can throw together a building without any thought of that, but it's going to be a mishmash and it's not going to be very stable. But if it's put together well, then you can use fewer materials and even be stronger. And your bone is alive. So it is active throughout your lifetime, and it has ability to remodel, and it's actually important for your bone to remodel for maintenance, because we need it to turn over. We need to remove old bone, build new bone, and that is something that is goes on constantly through our lifetimes. And even though the trend has shown that bone density decreases with age, there are things that we can do to improve our overall bone quality and even bone density, and keep our bones strong throughout our lifetimes. So when we understand how bone develops, so going way back early to the fetus and how bone develops, bone and membrane form under tension. So membrane are things like your fascia and the dura, the things that hold everything together, including your muscles and your bones. So that forms under tension. But if you put more pressure and tension, then that area of the body will form bone. So that is how a very simple explanation of how it forms in the fetus. But that's important to understand, because as we go along, you'll start to understand, like, well, how can you improve then your bone quality and bone density? So we'll go step by step. I'm going to go talk about some dietary things, vitamins and minerals, some amino acids and proteins for bone health. And then we're going to talk about some herbs for bone health as well. And I'll also talk about some energetics along the way, because your bone represents the most dense part of you. So if we think about your body as this manifestation system, your bone is the densest part, is the most 3D part, and to be able to reclaim yourself fully, to really fully inhabit yourself and ground yourself into the body so that your bones can be healthy and strong. So we'll be flowing in and out of these various perspectives and aspects as we go along. So the first is the alkaline diet and what that has to do with bone health. So your acid in the body, it is buffered by the kidney, as well as by muscles and respiration. You're breathing out carbon dioxide, and bone base, which is the bicarbonate from the bone. So we know as we age, the kidney excretion of acid decreases. So, and this is often accompanied by muscle loss with age. So over time, the bones take a bigger hit. Now, there's been a lot of talk about like acid, alkaline, and why would the alkaline diet have anything to do with your bones? Because the kidneys should be able to handle it. So this was really interesting because there was an article in Nutrients in 2018, and this came out of UCSF. So a very reputable medical establishment. And here's a quote from that article. So the body retention of only 1 or 2 milliequivalents of acid each day. So that's barely detectable by current measurement techniques. And it's buffered by muscle and kidney and titrated by skeletal base over decades, which could potentially result in major depletion of bone mineral. Thus, we suggest that those older subjects with diminished renal function, decreased renal acid excretory ability, and lower buffering capacity due to lower muscle and or bone mass, and whose diets contain high net acid loads could potentially benefit the most from alkali therapies. So when we're talking about, yes, the body buffers, but over time, it takes a hit from the bone contributing to that buffering system. Because if you're eating all acidic foods, acidic forming, so for example, lemon is acidic, but it is alkaline forming to the body. So acidic forming foods, if you are eating too much of those, then your kidneys might not be able to manage it all. Your lungs might not be managed at all. So your muscles and your bone will help buffer that to keep the pH at a more reasonable function, but it's taking a hit. So that's why it's really important to understand how an alkaline diet is beneficial to bone health. And when you're young, in your youth, sometimes you're able to get away with more, but through the decades, then you'll start to feel it. And it's that slow loss over time that you may not notice until one decade you do, and it starts to show up. But then by that point, it's like you're experiencing fractures and loss of muscle. So we want to take a more preventative approach. But even if you have been diagnosed with osteopenia, osteoporosis, then to understand how that acid-base balance and how an alkaline diet could be helpful. So I talk about the alkaline diet in episode 91 of the MultiDimensional MD. I go through it in more detail, but in brief, alkaline forming foods are more vegetables, 3 to 1 above ground. So your leafy greens, 2 below ground, your starchy veggies, and some fruits in there. And then the acidic forming foods are going to be your grains, beans, and most sources of protein, including animal meats, fish, poultry, beef, lamb, all of those, as well as like your tofu and those sorts of things. So the ratio of alkaline forming to acid forming foods is supposed to be 80%. So it's a much different ratio than you might find yourself eating currently. So whatever you can do to just lean towards a more ideal alkaline diet ratio, and check out episode 91. And I also have a handout on that as well to help guide you through it. So this is all very interesting. And then we go into our vitamins and minerals for bone health. So there are at least a dozen minerals that are important for bone health. And about 65% of those are made out of inorganic compounds. These are the minerals, including hydroxyapatite. So hydroxyapatite is a crystal that lies adjacent and is bound to the protein matrix. So your amino acids are actually building the scaffolding of the structure of your bone, and then the minerals attached to it to form the overall structure. So many minerals: calcium, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, zinc, copper, silicon, boron, strontium, fluoride, and fermented foods also contain like some of these trace minerals. So you can get these minerals from food sources besides dairy, including dark greens, broccoli, kale, because dairy is actually, if you were talking about milk and cream, it is acidic, acid forming to the body. If we're talking about like yogurts, those are alkaline forming. So important to notice how you're getting your sources of minerals in terms of the ratios for an alkaline diet, because you could be getting a lot of dairy and calcium through milk or cream or cheeses, but because those are acid forming, then you're also going to be buffering the acid with the help of the bone and muscle. So you're going to be using some of that up. And then when we're talking about the greens, it's good to note that spinach, because it's high in oxalates, that lowers the bioavailability of calcium. And so we need like a variety of greens. If you can't get enough greens in your diet, which can be difficult too, then you might want to consider supplementing with greens. I like vitaminal green as a supplement. There's also seaweed, kelp, and algae. Other sources include like edamame and almonds. And these are all an important part of the alkaline diet. So everything that we're talking about is going to be supportive of each other. We also need vitamin C for that bone structure. We need vitamin D3, that sunshine vitamin that helps to your body absorb calcium. We also need vitamin K2. I did a whole other episode on vitamin K2. And this vitamin helps to bring calcium to the bones and away from the arteries. So it keeps your arteries supple, it keeps your valves from hardening, and it also brings the calcium to the bone. This is so important. And all ages have been found to be deficient in vitamin K2. There is a level 1 and level 2 evidence for the use of vitamin K2 for osteoporosis. So Dr. Schwalfenberg from the University of Alberta, Canada, he said that studies using vitamin K2 demonstrate improvement in bone quality rather than bone density, while significantly reducing fractures and preventing vascular calcification. And they got on to say that the use of vitamin D and vitamin K2 together as an approach to osteoporosis treatment may significantly reduce morbidity and mortality. This approach may rival bisphosphonate treatment. Those are the prescriptions for osteoporosis, without the side effects associated with the use of this medication, along with reducing vascular calcification and its complications. So it's important to get that vitamin K2, and it's important to get that in with your probiotic foods and fermented foods. If you can't get enough, and go to my other podcast on vitamin K2, my other episode, but I often recommend to many patients to take a vitamin K2 supplement. If you are taking warfarin, Coumadin, any vitamin K antagonist, then please talk to your doctor. If you're on any blood thinners, just talk to them, make sure that this is okay for you to take. Otherwise, for kids, I would say at least 50 micrograms. For adults, I would say at least 180 micrograms to 360 micrograms of vitamin K2 would be a nice amount, but definitely talk to your healthcare practitioner about that. There are mixed results on vitamin K2 on bone density, but please remember that your bone strength is not just about bone density, because if you have old bone put together and the tensegrity of it is not in this like elegant architectural build, then that bone is not going to be as strong as bone that is bone quality, that has a that puts where the minerals are put together with a nice scaffolding of the protein. So that takes us to amino acids for bone health. So that includes collagen, gelatin, protein sources. So there are a lot of amino acids in gelatin, and there's also collagen. So amino acids are needed for this type 1 collagen, which creates this protein matrix for the scaffolding of the bone, and that's what the minerals attached to. So important amino acids include lysine and proline and other amino acids. So you have that scaffolding structure. Just like when they're creating a building, you might have, if you're making a skyscraper, you have like that steel scaffolding, and then you put everything attached to that. So we can think about our bodies the same way, the bones the same way. So we need the scaffolding to be nice and strong and put together well, to have a nice foundation, and then to be able to add the minerals to that so that they're put together well. Bone quality is what we really want to go for, and to lower bone fragility and increase bone quality. It's not just about bone density. And so when we're measuring bone density, like with the DEXA scans and everything, it's important to note that, because it's not all about bone density. And we don't always have this conversation in regular medicine, which is why I want to come here and to be able to bring this information to you here. So then that brings us to exercise, this circulation for the bone. So we talked about nutrients and assimilation, and bringing in those nutrients in, but we need the circulation to bring the nutrients to where they're needed. And you really need some kind of weight bearing exercise. So again, remember when I was talking about the fetus, and the membrane forms under tension, but if you get more tension, then you get bone formation. So the bone is active, it is alive, it is meant to continue remodeling throughout our lifetime. It's just that we tend to be more active in our youth, and then through the decades, it's like less and less activity. So then that's the balance there, that tug of war. So we need to maintain some sort of weight bearing exercise to have enough pressure tension. So this is an area where tension actually is helpful for building something. So often I'm talking about releasing tension, tension releasing exercises, releasing pressure, but we do need some pressure to help us build bone. So high star seed, yes, vitamin D, K2, so important. So weight bearing exercises. But this doesn't have to be just with lifting weights. You can do it in other ways. You can do it with yoga. You can do it with qigong and tai chi. So with some of these other exercises where you're moving energy. So a colleague of mine was telling me how his qigong instructor was saying how the energy moves through the bone marrow. So the bone marrow carries the blood so that the bones can be nourished. And there was another study with the Tai Chi, a 2022 meta-analysis that concluded that 6 months of Tai Chi improved bone mineral density. Again, they said that you couldn't do that. My friend's physician said you could not improve it. Here's a study showing that Tai Chi, with the gentle movements of Tai Chi, moving energy, see? But that energy helped to bring nourishment to the bone and actually improve the bone mineral density in postmenopausal women. So incredible. There are also these newer machines. They've not that new. They've been around for at least a decade. I just talked to the owner of one that's called a biodensity machine. There's also another one called AXR that uses this resistance so that you can max out on how much you're using your muscles, your strength, so that your bones can feel that impact, but they do it in a way that's very safe. So these are more clinical exercises when you're using these machines. But the benefit of these machines is that you get a lot out of very little time. So I love efficiency. Efficiency is where the ease is. And I just love talking to people that are like talking about how you can use these concepts and understanding of like, well, how does bone form? Well, it forms under tension. It forms, that's why you need the weight bearing exercises. So a colleague of mine has been using one of these machines weekly. And even after 4 weeks of use, he's seeing improvement in his muscle mass. So sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle loss, which they also say you can't do anything about. So he's improved that. And I'm talking to these owners of this owner of the biodensity machines. Same thing. He's been seeing that for over a decade now. Improvement in bone density, improvement in bone quality. And that's just with minutes of use a week. So there's so much potential here. And I'm hoping to just continue to talk about bone health and get a bone program together, because there's so many aspects of bone health that I want to talk about. And I'm just giving you an overview here. There's another device called a power plate, which is a whole body vibration system. It helps to actually move the lymph. It helps to loosen up the fascia, but it also can be important for building bone health. And then in the Qigong movement, so I will do these exercises from Yochi, another YouTube channel. It's YOQI. And so the instructor there was talking about how stomping on the ground. So she had some stomping movements. See, that creates like some weight bearing, but that resistance is good for your bone and stimulating bone growth. So again, our bones are alive and we just need them to be active. So we need to participate in our bone with our bones so that they stay alive and strong. It's really just about being present with our bodies and being really grounded in our bodies. And I was just talking about this earlier about the manifestation of that. So think about what that means energetically. If you can improve your bone health and if you can manifest with clarity into the densest part of your body, do you start to see what that means in terms of like energetic and manifestation in your life in general? So if you have clarity all the way to the densest part of your body, you're able to manifest all the way into that 3D physical. That will have impact in so many different areas of your body. And this is part of the reason that I'm so excited about being able to talk about bone health. So the last thing I just wanted to mention were a few herbs for bone health. There are so many other things that we can talk about, but I'm going to bring up a few things that did have a handful of studies on them. One was red clover. So research is mixed when it comes to red clover and osteoporosis. There was a 2015 study on menopausal women taking red clover for 3 months. And they found that bone mineral density was improved in the women who took red clover. So other studies didn't show this the same change, and dosing will be important for these studies. And then when we talk about bone health, realize that we have to talk about it from multiple different perspectives. So when we do a study, they're taking like one single component, and maybe that one single component isn't enough. But if they're getting some sort of potential or promising results, what I'm looking at is what if you combine like multiple easy things and start to do that more consistently? If you combine all those together, then you are more likely to see results. So they did see this in a study on horsetail. So, sometimes they're saying that studies on horsetail, which has a lot of minerals in it, including silica, had mixed results too. But there was one study on bone mineral density, and again, in postmenopausal women. And they were comparing taking horsetail, I don't have the dosage yet of the study, I'm trying to look it up, to taking a calcium supplement with horsetail. So horsetail alone to calcium plus horsetail. So after 1 year, they found that the bone density improved better with the calcium supplement that also had horsetail than just the horsetail supplement alone. So that's what I'm talking about. It's like, what if you take multiple easy things and put them together? You're probably going to get a better result than if you just take one small thing. So just something to consider. The similar thing happened in this study with thyme, which is high in vitamin K, calcium, iron, and manganese. So one study took a look at 1,000 milligrams of thyme daily for 6 months on postmenopausal women. And they found that regular consumption of thyme improved bone mineral density, then a calcium vitamin D3 supplement. So interesting. It was even rivaling a calcium D3 supplement. But what if you did thyme plus calcium and D3? And and they also found that thyme was most effective when it was used with sage and rosemary, so other herbs that were considered helpful for bone health. That bone mineral density was higher with this combination than thyme alone. So I'm not saying to go out there and take every single thing that increases your calcium, because it's a balance of calcium too, because we don't want to promote kidney stones. So you need to pay attention to the alkaline diet. You need to pay attention to the ratios. You need to, if you are taking more acidic foods in, then you could be throwing the balance off in other ways. So, but listen to all this different things that I said in this episode and see where could you improve your bone health. How could you improve your bone health with each of these components? Do you need to have a more alkaline diet to not demand that your bones buffer your pH, especially over the decades, especially if you're later in life and you can reverse the trend of bone loss? Like, can you start thinking about that? But start thinking about it earlier on, because there's so many more benefits to the alkaline diet than just the bone health. Do you need to look at your vitamin minerals? So what you're taking in, do you need certain nutrients for your bone health? Like, are you lacking in certain things? And then there's different ways that we could check that. We could check just clinically, we could check energetically, we could check with labs, and so we could put together like different supplements if that's needed, or make some changes in the diet. I mean, that's always preferable, but if you do need help, then it's like choosing which supplement for bone health for which person. So matching up. So everybody's a little bit different in terms of what their needs are. Are there certain exercises that you need to incorporate for bone health? So walking alone is not going to do it. Walking is beneficial for so many things. It helps to massage your abdominal organs. It's gets things moving and flowing, but it's not enough to create that stimulus for bone production. So you need some other exercise besides that. So is it something that you want to do, like some yoga, tai chi, or qigong? So you're getting it that resistance and weight-bearing exercise with a more energetic component? Or do you want to do something that's more clinical exercise with these machines and work with a place like that? Or do you want to do a combination of all of those things? And maybe you want to include some of these herbs that I mentioned into your health and get some minerals through that. And they affect more than just your minerals. They can affect your whole endocrine system. So I'm just summarizing all of the things I talked about, because I want you to be able to see that there's many ways to look at bone health. And so if you ever go to the physician and they say that the only option you have are taking prescriptions, that is absolutely not true. Yes, exercise, but there's more details to the exercise. And yes, absolutely, your diet matters. So I hope that helps you in some way. And this is something that I want to continue talking about. One, because it's approaching 50. And so it's personally interesting to me, but also professionally interesting. And I want to talk about bone health for kids and bone health for middle age and adults, and what we can do in these various at times in our life, because all the stages can be enjoyable and fun, and we can have ease and efficiency in every stage of life that we're in. So we can thrive at every age. So thank you so much for being here with me. This was a little bit longer than usual, but if you'd like to connect with me in other ways, you can at All Worlds Health on Instagram, All Worlds Health and Pediatrics on Facebook, or you can sign up for my e-love letters. I'll send them out about once a week on Wednesdays, and you can do that at allworldshealth.com. And I always love to hear from you. So please like, subscribe, comment, let me know where you're from, let me know what your questions are. And a lot of the things that I talk about come from people asking me these things. So this talk today was about a friend calling me and saying like, hey, this is a report I got. This is what my doctor said. And I was like, oh, we can do so much better than that. So this is multidimensional medicine. Lots of love to all of you. I believe in you, so I hope that you believe in you too. And I'll see you next week on another episode of the Multidimensional MD. Take care.